And it's so funny, like when Ben Shapiro and these sort of people get famous off of facts don't care about your feelings. But to be honest, like conservatives these days, it just seems to be mainly emotion. It's how they feel about topics.
That's, dude, perfect. No notes. And that's always been the case, by the way. Just so people understand. Conservative argumentation has never been around facts. Ben Shapiro actually marketed himself as like the facts-based champion. But I have hours upon hours of video dedicated specifically to how not facts-based Ben Shapiro's arguments are. Like, they've only been able to successfully market themselves as quote-unquote facts-based. I want to watch this JimmyTheGiant video about how he escaped the alt-right, and apparently he actually gives a shout-out to Destiny in here somewhere, but I still want to watch it.
It is brought to you by Squarespace. Yes, my brothers, my brodies, my woadies. I'm going to do another one of these little talk to cams. You might have noticed, you know, through some of my videos, I officially joined the woke brigade. It's unfortunate. I didn't really want to, but I'm going to talk how we got here. My political arc has been pretty insane. At one point, I was in a Nico Malama video supporting Trump. That's me. I'll admit it. Blurry boy.
Trauma Reporters UK. I'm here. Look at my hat. I love Donald Trump.
So today we're going to talk about how I managed to escape the alt-right pipeline.
Up yours, woke moralists. How big is Luton?
It's 200,000 population.
And how many lost?
45.
There will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book.
Attacks on mosques, other minority communities singled out, wanton violence alongside racist rhetoric.
Seems JimmyTheGiant was a real Brexit geezer. What the fuck happened? What the fuck happened, Jimmy? You were on the right side of history, mate. Lad! You were a proper bloke. A proper Brexit geezer. The woke got you, eh?
When I was a young gangster, a YG, I was a little bruh, right? A little bruh. I'm about 13 years old.
Damn, this motherfucker looked like JonTron.
We're invited into school. It was mandatory, we weren't invited. And we had to do a speech. So, you know, my mate goes up and he does the history of Chelsea Football Club. A girl goes up and she does about horse riding. I go up with my little thumb drive, plug it in, 9/11. So I basically proceed to radicalize a classroom of young, impressionable 13-year-olds as to why the American government did 9/11.
Who do you believe was behind 9/11?
Criminal elements of the military-industrial complex, the same ones that staged Gulf of Tonkin, the same ones that staged the mass shootings of Operation Gladio.
Right.
Ooh.
I was in this kind of like early conspiracy theory bubble. But what I want to say is it was interesting, right? Because at that time, being a conspiracy theorist wasn't left and right. It was just anti-establishment. And so whilst I was listening to Alex Jones, I'd also be listening to the Young Turks and listening about Occupy Wall Street. So when I was young, I was just a sort of contrarian hipster. I'm not like a communist, but I'm definitely not a capitalist, and I'm definitely left-wing, and I definitely voted to remain in the EU referendum. And so time goes by, I grow up, and I remember I got, you know, I had a few jobs working like fucking Sainsbury's or B&Q, and that was further fueling my sort of anti-capitalist feelings. But I remember I got one job, and I met this geezer, and he was a proper right-winger.
Capitalism is good because capitalism is freedom. Socialism is bad because socialism is tyranny.
It was like a right-winger in the flesh. I'd never seen one before. I was like, what the fuck the hell is this? Capitalism good? Welfare state bad? NHS bad? But you see, although I deeply disagreed with all of his views at the beginning, you gotta remember 13-year-old contrarian Jimmy. He's still in there somewhere. And what he's hearing is contrarian views, you say. Anti-establishment, non-mainstream. Little old hipster Jimmy lapped up this sort of right-wing rhetoric because I realized it was different to everyone else, and that would make me interesting if I believed all these things, right? And like when I say right-wing, it's not, you know, we don't like foreigners. It's stuff like this.
The people who get on welfare lose their human independence and feeling of dignity. They become subject to the dictates and whims of their welfare.
It's really funny because the presentation of this stuff is considered anti-establishment, but it is the most establishment you can get. That's what's hilarious about it. When you have a guy like Milton Friedman being portrayed as an anti-establishment figure, like I'm not, you know, shitting on current Jimmy, right? But I'm saying that, like, there are a lot of people who probably have had this exact same experience where they think liberalism is woke video games or whatever the fuck, right? And it's anti-establishment to be conservative because everything is liberal and woke video games. When this guy is the most established right-winger you can get, like as established as you can get. His worldview is the neoliberal uniparty. Like, people, this is it. He is I mean, yeah, he was a Reagan advisor personally. His writings, his academic literature played a formative role in undermining the global South. It does not get more establishment than that. Just like it doesn't get more like your dad's point of view than Ben Shapiro.
Fair supervisor who can tell them whether they can live here or there, whether they may put in a telephone, what they may do with their lives. They're treated like children.
So now I'm at the doors of the alt-right pipeline, right? I pick up my hat with the light, turn the torch on, grab my pickaxe, and I head in. And the first stop is Jordan Peterson.
And then if I'd said to you, please, I'd rather go by she, how would you respond to that on a personal level? How would...
The way I have responded to that, because I've had a number of conversations with transgendered individuals, is that I use whatever pronoun seems to go along with the persona that they're projecting publicly. How can I describe the fact that someone who was once a woman, and really still is, had her breasts cut off because she, he, they, their, them had fallen prey to a viciously harmful fad?
So bear in mind, I didn't go to university. I went and just tried to make little businesses. I did a parkour brand, I ran a vegan food store, I did lots of little things. And very importantly, I was not academic.
This motherfucker was all over the place, bro, politically.
Jordan Peterson, to young Jimmy, sounded like how I imagine smart people sound.
So even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
He would use big words, he would do this with his hands, he would think and contemplate. Like, he was the sort of caricature of a smart person. And it was very interesting because all of his views tended to be quite contrarian.
I think there's something really interesting about this. Especially if Destiny played a formative role in him escaping the alt-right pipeline. What this man doesn't recognize is that he went from one, you know, contrarian figurehead to the other who also falsely presents themselves as like an intellectual giant. Ultimately, though, I will say it's marginally better, I guess, as long as he doesn't pick up on a lot of the other habits, like advocating for white people's right to say the N-word or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Or constantly fucking spending time and effort on shitting on left-wing people, or, you know, getting a little too close and personal with neo-Nazis and white nationalists.
Two sort of mainstream views. And he would, again, like my friend, he would talk about the benefits of capitalism. He would talk about natural hierarchies and that it wasn't capitalism's fault for hierarchies, but hierarchies are natural. And so it's very interesting because if you think about what Jordan Peterson is and what he thinks and his words now, back in 2016, it was very different, right?
As a matter of respect, in fact, would you refer to a trans person who asked you to use they, them pronouns, a pronoun which has a several hundred-year historical...
But that's not what we're talking about.
He rises to fame on what he is portraying as a free speech battle. The Canadian government are trying to make it so that if you say the wrong pronouns to a transgender person, you will go to jail. And Jordan Peterson never says something like, I don't.
By the way, that's not even true. I think we always forget to factor in how much of right-wing sentiment is just a lie, and how effective just simply lying from a biased perspective is. I know he doesn't have these opinions, by the way. Now, I'm saying that, like, I'm talking to old Jimmy, right? Old Jimmy the Giant, Jimmy the Little, before he became Jimmy the Giant. It's pretty interesting that an expansion of pre-existing hate crime statutes factored in misgendering, like intentional and deliberate routine misgendering, got so much pickup all around the planet, and it got so bad that the Canadian Bar Association had to basically write out statements over and over again, being like, this is not true. Like what Jordan Peterson is saying is just a lie, and nobody cared. Everyone got swept away.
Don't believe in trans people, and so I don't believe I should say their pronouns. He's not saying that people who do transgender surgeries are butchers. He is saying that by law, I shouldn't be forced to say anything.
Difference between saying that there's something you can't say and saying that there are things that you have to say. And I regard these made-up pronouns, all of them, as the neologisms of radical PC authoritarians.
As I grew up, I kind of realized he misrepresented this bill and he was blowing things out of proportion. But if we just take it on face value and believe what he was saying, then yeah, it seemed illogical to oppose what he was saying. And so whilst I'm going through Jordan Peterson's books, his podcasts, his speeches, etc., I'm getting this feeling that there's this sort of crazy, indoctrinated Marxist left who are trying to suppress your freedom and usher in communism. And so all this is happening all the way in Canada where no one gives a fuck about. But what about here in Britain, right? In Britain, we have a sort of similar scenario. And it involves a man, a very controversial man, by the name of Tommy Robinson. Before we go any further, I want to give a massive shout out to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is undoubtedly the best, I'm not kidding, the best platform when it comes to making websites. Beautiful websites, ones that are perfectly tailored to you. With their new design intelligence, which combines the newest AI technology, plus their years of understanding and crafting beautiful website templates, you can now literally type in prompts to the AI and it will create a bespoke website to you and your brand. As well as that, their payment system. So if you're selling goods online and people, maybe you have customers all around the world, Squarespace takes so many different types of payments, it's now easier than ever. From Klarna to ACH direct debit, Apple Pay, and you can even do buy now, pay later with Afterpay and Clear.
Wait, what is this? Hard to understand Wagwan with Jank. My Steelman take is maybe he's big braining to influence Trump by pandering. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think this guy likes me that much. I think we see the world in very similar ways, but I think he's been primed into not liking me too much, but maybe it'll change. We'll see.
And also, the laborious job of writing product descriptions got a whole world easier with Squarespace's Blueprint AI. You can just bang in a prompt, it will shoot out some text, you can tweak it and change it, and it will save you time and it's very good quality.
Oh shit. Fuck. Oh, fucking hell, mate. Fucking hell, Jimmy. Seems reasonable and open-minded, so never say never. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think that he has a really good message overall, and I like it. And I'm gonna. He's followed too many debate lords over time. That doesn't matter. A lot of people, I think, arrive at certain conclusions about the world, and whichever way they get there, I don't really fault them for it. It's great as long as they're like moving away from right-wing reactionary thinking. He retweeted you recently and loves Owen Jones. Oh, nice. Yeah. One thing I will say, he was talking about Jordan Peterson, right? And how Jordan Peterson's like rhetoric about I arrived at you through destiny, then washed in you. That's a crazy journey, my man. Holy shit. That's a wild journey. And I mean, there are people in here that fucking probably despised me because they were right wing, or probably despised me because they thought I was like a fucking bad person or whatever. There's plenty of people who make a lot of money presenting me as like a bad guy online professionally. So it is what it is. He's just tweeted about you. He's watching. Oh, hell yeah. Nice. I'm down to have him on. But if he's watching, I want to show him something. Okay? I wonder if he ever watched this video, because he said he was a fan of the Young Turks. And I wonder if he actually ended up watching this video called Jordan Peterson is not a conservative transphobe. This is from December 30th, 2018, right? And here's the thing. Back then, I understood that Jordan Peterson was a conservative transphobe. This is clickbait title, chat. And I wanted to get people exactly like Jimmy the Giant to click on this video and watch this video where I portrayed the exact same arguments that I have maintained for a very long time. Let's take a look.
That people, and I'm especially thinking of your opponents, get wrong about you.
Their basic proposition is that, you know, first of all, that I'm a right-winger of some sort, and that's just not the case.
Hi guys, just want to remind you all that Jordan Peterson is not a socially conservative lifestyle guru, and he certainly isn't white Deepak Chopra taking advantage of men who feel alienated in our increasingly divided hell world. And you know what? In this short video essay, I will prove that to you. There are plenty of other things I'd love to talk about Peterson, but it would never fit in the format of just one video. So if you have any additional questions or tell me how much I suck, you can direct them to me directly at twitch.tv/HasanAbi, where I'm live every day, or on my Instagram at HasanDPiker, or my Twitter at HasanTheHun. Damn, bro, I had 100,000 fucking followers on Twitter and 200,000 on Instagram back then. That's crazy. 5 years ago. All right, let's continue. Let's listen to some of the things Jordan Peterson said in this Breitbart exclusive from a conference where he was the guest speaker alongside many of these other non-ideologue individuals like Sebastian Gorka and Dennis Prager and Tucker Carlson. For the record, I was already shitting on Jordan Peterson being transphobic a long time ago, even far before this, because some of the clips that I pull out, some of the clips that I bring in here, right? This is, you know, December 30th, 2018, okay? December 30th, 2018. It's 6 fucking years ago. But even before then, I kept trying to get people to understand that Jordan Peterson was just like faking the you know, self-help nonsense to push for a lot of dangerous right-wing reactionary ideas, and he was doing so with genuine success. And a lot of people fucking hated me for it back then. Let's watch. Here he is with Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump Jr., Kimberly Guilfoyle, and even Jack Pizzagate Posobiec. Not a conservative, by the way. Just not a conservative.
I think it's partly also a consequence of the fact that we haven't adapted to the birth control pill yet. You know, it was a major technological revolution, the birth control pill, and it's only been 50 years. And we haven't figured out what it means for women to have control over the reproductive function, or what the consequences what the consequences of that should be socially.
Now, Jordan has a lot of wacky ideas about women in the workplace, but that's for another video. In this video, I want to talk about his perspective on trans rights, because that's a big point of contention for a lot of people, including feminist liberal TERFs, or for those of you who are not extremely online, trans exclusionary radical feminists, basically people who say like this.
I'm not saying that people should not be allowed to go through that procedure. What I'm saying is it doesn't make them a woman.
But Hasan, you said he was conservative, and this person's a liberal, and they're in agreement. Yeah, that's also for another video. Okay, back to Peterson. Jordan Peterson initially made a name for himself by misrepresenting Bill C-16 in Canada, which expanded previous legislation on hate speech to include gender identity, in accordance with international human rights. And of course, the backlash was tremendous. People started praising Dr. Peterson as a brave truth teller, finally standing up against those trans bastards who dared to ask for equal equal rights. And of course, then there were a lot of radical ideologues who claimed that I, Dr. Jordan Peterson, was transphobic. They were all somehow taking me out of context. Look, I'm not against trans people existing. I'm just against being compelled to call someone by a pronoun other than what I think they should be called.
Why are you against the use of alternate pronouns?
I'm against the use of legislation to determine what words that myself and other people are required to utter.
Except the Canadian Bar Association expressly mentions that this is simply a mischaracterization of the law, which is probably why 0 people have gone to jail over misgender crimes in Canada. But what do I know?
I think I've made my position on that clear already. Well, perhaps not to our audience at home who are just being introduced to this. Would you use alternate pronouns? And why not? Because I don't believe that other people have the right to determine what language I use, especially when it's backed by punitive legislation. And when the words that are being required are the constructions, they're artificial constructions of people I regard as radical ideologues whose viewpoint I do not share.
I mean, Peterson's being totally reasonable here, right? Like if a person told me their name was John, I might refuse to call them that because I think their name is actually Bart. Sorry, Bart, you can't compel me to call you anything else. This assignment is totally not arbitrary. Just like gender is totally not a social construct. All men have to express themselves in this traditionally masculine, Western sense, and I've never cared to research how other cultures view gender. Sorry, not going to do it. Someone with less bone density than myself, for example, who can't grow body hair, facial hair, who is 5'4", maybe has a higher pitch, is now going to be considered a woman since gender is absolutely binary. Take that, Jen Shapiro. She is pretty hot though. But speaking of gender identity and how it absolutely is not functional if we— Dude, I've been running that Ben Shapiro bit for so long, it's crazy. I think I partially am the reason why he fucking grew that beard, bro. Like I kept saying he can't grow a beard, and I think that motherfucker started putting Rogaine on his face to try and grow a beard. Or maybe because they like invented Jen Shapiro in a fucking vacuum. In a vat, Brett Cooper. So then Ben was like, I have to look different than you know, the female version of myself. If we were to live by Jordan Peterson's rules, let's play a little experiment. What pronouns would you use for this person? What pronouns would you use for this person? Well, how about this person? Or even this beautiful MAGA broad? Or this person whose YouTube channel you should absolutely watch because she's amazing even though she doesn't reply to my DMs on Twitter. Like, imagine meeting up with Valentina Sampaio at a restaurant. How would you point her out? Dr. Peterson claims he'd call them by the pronoun assigned to them at birth, which is literally insane. For those of you who didn't get the point that I was making, every single person I just showed you are very famous trans people. But yeah, this is totally about free speech and not because Jordan Peterson is a transphobe or whatever.
Do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Oh, so that's why he was refusing to do that. I mean, this is a principled academic philosopher king. We're probably taking him out of context. I'm sure he has reasons. Give us your reasons, Dr. Peterson.
Why not?
Because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant.
Okay. Total bro tip. You should only follow pronouns if you pass. Yeah, for the record, you cynical little shit. Yes, I will address that as well in a second. Just wait for the rest of the video, okay? Before chirping. Yeah. No, this person is shitting on me, saying like, oh, classic reactionary thinking. You should only value someone's gender pronouns if they pass. No, man, sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good to fucking start the conversation. Especially considering that gender is a socially developed phenomenon and it's a social construct. It's probably important to meet people where they're at, you know? Maybe that's precisely the reason why I do a decent job at converting people away from transphobia, and you just fucking come in here and enjoy the show and can, you know, be entertained and know that this is a safe space for you. First off, Buck Angel has XX chromosomes and female genitalia, so I'd be hard-pressed for Dr. Peterson to point out to him in a crowd and try to get others to identify him as a woman since all of those standards apply to old Buck. This opens up the conversation for people. This is not where the conversation ends, okay? I'm not like a trans medicalist or whatever the fuck. But this is a very good way to start the conversation for a lot of people. Passability is not the end all be all of being trans, okay? But shut the fuck up. I know better than you. I'm a cisgender heterosexual man who literally used to be transphobic. That's it. If your goal is to convert transphobic people to not be transphobic, then yeah, I'm the fucking king of knowing that, okay? Not only have I gone through this journey individually, but also simultaneously have been able to bring a lot of people on board with that lived experience. Get mad all you want. It's the truth. And it's kind of funny because like I literally am about to bring this part up as well in terms of passability not being the end all be all. Like it's coming. Yeah. Standpoint theory for transphobia. Exactly. I'm going to start living the fuck up, dude. Hey, it's called Bodies in Spaces, okay? As a former transphobic person, I'm doing a Bodies in Spaces. You helped me evolve my understanding concerning transphobia as well. I know. This is why I always, bro, this is why I always fucking tell people like, listen, if I'm talking about black issues, okay, and you're a black person, you're a black chatter, it's not for you. You're black. You already know. You already know this shit, okay? You live it. If I'm talking about trans issues, you're trans, you know this already. Okay? I'm talking to transphobes. I'm talking to fucking black, not black chatters, but white chatters who are anti-black racists. You know? So don't fucking come at me and be like, I don't really like the way you didn't utilize academic language. Anyway.
Also, are we no longer considering girls who haven't had their first periods women? What about women who have gone through menopause? Sorry, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you're no longer a woman. I will be referring to you as a male now. Do you see my point? Socially speaking, the reality is that we make assumptions about gender from visual cues and not off of chromosomes. Yet the leading champion of the scientific argument constantly conflates biological gender with the contextual assignment of gender we apply socially every day. But even on the biological front, Peterson's principled analysis falls short since there are plenty of people who would be considered intersex, specifically 1.7% of the world's population. In context, by the way, if you want to say that, well, that's a tiny minority of people who gives a well, you're a douchebag. Also, that number is higher than the number of Jewish people on this planet. Okay, have you made it up to this point? Now, here are some personal opinions that I have that will most likely piss off some people who considered me an ally up to this point. So if you're deep into gender theory, this might upset you. And if you're a trans person, you might think I'm excusing transphobia. So there it is. I'm issuing a trigger warning. Are we alone yet? Okay, I get why this concept is terrifyingly alien to so many people, okay? This is partially due to centuries of oppression, lack of medical advances, the Nazis setting back trans research by centuries with their book burnings, and in this day and age, a lack of representation in media. I get it. It's already difficult enough to defend your worldview on things that you barely understand, like complex political theories, but changing your mind on something as concrete as gender that you've been conditioned into thinking about in a binary way requires tremendous amounts of introspection. So here is my olive branch to those who haven't had to think about this until now. Trans women are women, and trans men are men. So while I understand that your only introduction to trans folk has probably been hysterical college freshmen on YouTube compilations screaming at your intellectual daddy, there's more to it than that. There are plenty of brilliant trans men and women who are more informed on this subject than myself, and I highly suggest you take a look at their work, especially ones that immediately come to mind right now are ContraPoints, and I already mentioned her in the video, and my esteemed moderator is Twitch at twitch.tv, going to tyt.uk. UID Network is now available on...
So, bring back the breakdown for the TikTok era? Yeah. My point is, my arguments haven't really changed. You're so much more articulate when you aren't in front of the scrutiny machine. Oh, you mean chatters? You mean chat? A sea of conflicting opinions, all primed against me? constantly doing the same thing that they hate when my enemies, my ideological enemies, do it. Anyway, like that one chatter who was fucking saying like, oh, you're doing transmedicalism, like implying that I was doing transmedicalism, and it's not like an effective starting point for a lot of people who genuinely think trans people are gross, weird, bad, whatever.
So be sure to head over to squarespace.com/JimmyTheGiant, and to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain, use the code JimmyTheGiant. Anyway, back to the video.
This
the Quran around in your hand
book is
in
the
that
reason,
disgraceful manner
this book is
outrageous.
This book is the reason we're in such a mess.
Tommy Robinson, the fucking EDO lad!
Boys, I'm not proud of this, but I'm just being an honest person. I'm trying to explain where I was at, how I got to where I was, and how I am where I am now. So I come across Tommy Robinson in this period of time where he goes to jail for, as he's presenting it to the audience online, trying to report on Muslim grooming gangs. He goes to jail. And I see this as a suppression of journalism, a suppression of free speech by a tyrannical government. You know, and I ignored the fact that it was contempt of court, and he knew exactly it was contempt of court, and he did it deliberately to provoke this reaction. But the way it was being presented was very clever. Again, it was all about free speech. It wasn't about the underlying issue of Islam, etc., but it was just about free speech. And so when you're already primed to be sort of libertarian, pro-free speech, and you're perceiving these attacks on free speech, you start to wonder, why are they attacking these people for their speech? And it unfortunately has this effect of making you think that the person is a truth teller and the government are trying to suppress them. And it reinforces your belief in what they're saying must have some truth to it if they want to hide it so bad. And these people, these what I would now consider grifters, they know that. They know that that's the response and the feeling it's going to create in people. They want to be martyrs because then people will follow them even more ardently.
It's so important for the establishment because they know I've reached the people. They know
Free Tommy Robinson and free him now.
Gert Wilders. Just the peanut gallery of some of the worst scumbags, dude. Holy shit.
And so, yeah, I go to like a rally, like a free speech rally when Tommy Robinson's about to go to jail, and I come across Nico, and I see Nico, and I've seen him online, and I saw how he was trying to present everyone that went to a Tommy Robinson rally as a racist. And I knew from my perspective, and knowing who I was, I knew I wasn't a racist. And so I go up to Nico and I tell the people around him that he's trolling you and he's trying to like make you look stupid online. And then Nico does...
Jimmy tweeted at me, he said, cheers for watching. I'm gonna have him on the stream if he wants to after we're done watching this video.
Misrepresent me in the video, and he says that I went up to the police and told them to get rid of Nico.
The police then came over and surprise, surprise, he started crying to them as well.
When in reality, I was actually saying to the police that Nico has his free speech, because, you know, I'm fucking obsessed with free speech in this period of time. I don't know why. I think it's the single most important thing on earth. But either way, like, as much as I disagree with myself for being at that rally and supporting Tommy Robinson in that time, I still stand by the fact that I don't think these people understood why people were presenting them as racist, right? And I just want to touch on that.
Tell me a Trump policy right now.
I support...
Fake, waffle. You're waffling, man. Yeah, answer the question.
I support his trade policy.
How dare you fake this? How dare you? This...
You know, now, from, you know, the view I have now, I understand there are sort of two types of racism. There's like overt racism, which is like, you know, I fucking hate migrants when you send them back, they're the worst. And then you have this kind of more like subconscious racism, or like in effect racism. And what I mean by that is, like, I knew I wasn't racist because I grew up...
Oh my God. This is literally, he's talking about the permission structure. Permissible bigotry versus that masquerades as common sense versus out and about racism that even racist people go, over. Now, the interesting part about this is something I talk about quite frequently, as you guys know. The interesting part about this also is that depending on where you're at on the reactionary spectrum, like going to a literal EDL rally, you could still assume that you're not a fucking racist person. And I think that ultimately that's because no matter how much we yell at people and say society is racist or whatever, even racists understand that racism is bad up to a certain point, which is why they always subconsciously or sometimes deliberately and consciously try to hide their true perspective. Some people might not even recognize that this is their true perspective. And I believe Jimmy when he says he didn't understand why people were saying he was racist. Like, I just care about free speech. That was the entry point for him. People making convincing arguments. People telling him like, oh no, this is common sense and this is free speech. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who are rudderless, who are fragile, who are vulnerable. And people like Jordan Peterson open up the floodgates and move them in the direction of the likes of Tommy Robinson. It's a perfect ideological journey. I mean, it's obvious. He went from watching Jordan Peterson videos and thinking that Jordan Peterson is not like right wing at all. He's just like some woke Canadian professor who is using neutral language, using objective language, and is just simply saying it like it is, to a guy like Tommy fucking Robinson and Douglas Murray. I hate this piece of shit.
Very multiculturally. And I liked people of different races. I had lots of friendships with them and I got along with them very well. So I never in my heart felt anything bad towards people of different races. But what can happen from there is when you think you're like immune to racism, you sometimes are more susceptible to it in a way, but just a different type of racism. These grifters know they can't just say that, I don't know, black people are inferior genetically, although some of them have started doing that again. They've found sneakier ways of wrapping it, often by hiding behind culture. These pundits will lie and say stuff like 84% of grooming gangs are Asian Pakistani, which has been endlessly disproven. It is white people who make up the majority of grooming gangs. But all this misinformation can lead you to believe that their culture is inferior to ours, and therefore we can't mix. And with the Tommy Robinson thing, it's kind of the same when it comes to Islam, right? You didn't hate people for being like...
This guy's awesome. I love this video. Holy shit. Amazing.
Having brown skin. You were simply critiquing their ideology, their beliefs.
You wouldn't do that with Sir William Would you do that with the Bible? Show some respect. Show some respect. Show some respect. Have you read this for people? Have you read this?
Piers Morgan, the fucking woke Quran defender, by the way. God, fucking Piers, man. What a fucking clown! What a fucking bellend! This is bellend on bellend violence, mate.
There are over a billion people.
So, you know, I'm listening to the greatest hits, right? I'm listening to Ben Shapiro debate some 12-year-old feminist. I'm listening to Jordan Peterson, Matt Walsh, I'm Joe Rogan till I fucking die. And I find myself accepting that I must be right-wing now. And, you know, little hipster Jimmy, that's cool because now I'm different to everyone. I'm the contrarian, right? I have all the different opinions. Oh no, the sky isn't blue. Actually, no, it's a shade of maroon. And like when you're listening to all this stuff, you get this sort of impression of the left, like what you're perceiving the left to be like, basically the worst of the left.
You know you're a millennial when you question whether or not it's ethical to bring children into this world. Because of climate change. We don't really know whether or not the world's going to be habitable in 30 years.
And so you just get pushed further and further right from more of a reactionary position rather than some actual ideological and maybe academic understanding of economies and politics. It just sort of is a feeling. And it's so funny, like when Ben Shapiro and these sort of people get famous off of facts don't care about your feelings. But to be honest, like conservatives these days, it just seems to be mainly emotion. It's how they feel about topics.
That's, dude, perfect. No notes. And that's always been the case, by the way. Just so people understand. Conservative argumentation has never been around facts. Ben Shapiro actually marketed himself as like the facts-based champion. But I have hours upon hours of video dedicated specifically to how not facts-based Ben Shapiro's arguments are. Like, they've only been able to successfully market themselves as quote-unquote facts-based. But in fact, Most of it is just, and this is unfortunately a common trait for all debate lords in general. Debate lording online in an unstructured setup that doesn't have like points or whatever is simply who can rationalize logical fallacies faster and justify it. That's all debates devolve into. And I say this as someone who is also, you know, partaken in this. I have done it myself, and I still continue to do it myself because I understand like hypocrisy baiting and logical fallacies are actually a very quick way to win points in this conversation, to win people over to your side. But yeah, make no mistake. Republicans have never, ever fucking had facts on their side. They just haven't. They do, however, massage the data. They do a very good job of that, but lately they haven't even tried to massage the data because it doesn't really matter. There's no need for them to massage the data because there is a fucking faucet of right-wing media out there that just reinforces this false notion over and over and over again. And many people don't even fucking want the truth. There's no more intellectual curiosity. Okay? We've gotten to a point where people just want someone who agrees with them to tell them they're right. Okay? It's all fucking vibes based. Yeah. Like, yeah, they went from 1350 shit to simply saying blacks eat cats. Thank you. That's a fantastic example. 1350 still is not actually data. It's a false interpretation of data. We've talked about it quite a bit. 13% of black people cause 50% of crimes is the catch-all for that. It's FBI crime statistics, but specifically it's FBI arrest statistics that they're falsely claiming is, leading to convictions, when the only thing that the 1350 data actually shows is that, especially when paired up with additional data that you understand that the American criminal justice system actually over prosecutes and over arrests black people for the same proclivity to do crime as white people, that the 1350 statistic only shows that reality, which is that black people are prosecuted harder, black people get longer sentences, and more importantly, they are over policed. So if you don't fully comprehend the data in and of itself, you could just say catch-all 1350. That's actually still cherry picked, right? Having said that, however, now they've moved on from that. They don't even do the cherry pick data shit no more. They just simply go, Haitians are eating cats. Black people eat cats and dogs. We have to deport them. Something to remember.
They hate when you bring up academic papers and actual facts, and they don't trust any of that.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
And ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
And either way, I find myself as a right-winger. I have not descended into overtly racist beliefs or overtly transphobic beliefs, misogynistic beliefs. I haven't gone that far, but I probably do house some sort of unconscious discriminatory beliefs in maybe trans people.
Bro, first of all, you're British. That's just given. It's just a part of the territory. Secondly, I think the very fact that you acknowledge that is an incredibly healthy step. Okay? Like awareness, self-awareness of the sort is so fucking good, dude. Holy shit. It's fantastic. And people will say, he's a right-winger. No, he used to be a former right-winger. And he's saying he still has some subconscious biases. Right? And it's great. It's fantastic to recognize that and work against them. You know what I mean? And learn and go on your journey of understanding the truth about the world.
people, perhaps even women to a degree, again, often wrapping their push for equality and better rights as some kind of Marxist revolution. But I believe in the typical sort of right-wing viewpoint that the state should be smaller, that people are responsible for themselves, and probably that like poor people are just lazy and they need to fix their own shit, and that billionaires and corporations are really good and like, you know, sort of, unless
he's saying that was his former position.
They're the ones that, I don't know, Russell Brand says is bad, and then all of a sudden they're bad because they're tied to, I don't know, George Soros. George Soros business, bad. Bill Gates business, bad. But Elon Musk buying Twitter, good. Very good. Anyway, I'm deep in the pipeline, right? I'm deep. COVID happens. Obviously, I don't get vaxxed. I don't wear the mask. I'm sorry if I killed anyone. And, you know, again, I regret that position now. I literally didn't want to get vaxxed, not because I thought it had 5G in it or something, but just because I was so sort of libertarian right wing that I didn't like the fact the government were telling me to do it. And like, I don't know, I'm here today, I'm vaccinated, and the woke police haven't come to my door yet, so probably I was overreacting.
Vaccine passports. While we've been looking in other directions, they are being slowly yet deliberately introduced. Are they the linchpin in a global surveillance network?
So you might be wondering, like, what was the moment? Like, when did it all change? When did the dam break? And there was a moment, right? And I can kind of point to it specifically. And it was through making my videos. Now, as you know, you guys are watching, you're probably really into all the social political stuff I do. But originally, I was a parkour YouTuber. And then I become like an extreme sports YouTuber. And when I got to the end of this period in 2022, I wanted to diversify my content, right? And I remember genuinely, I thought I was probably even going to make like those sort of right-wing documentary series, like things like Jen or like some of Moon's stuff, you know, that kind of thing. I thought I'd end up in that ilk. But you see, because I was a smart bruh and I could read the room, I knew that I couldn't make a video why Jordan Peterson's the best man alive. I knew I had to take my time to kind of meander. So I made a video on a very specific topic.
Bro, this dude is literally talking about Tyler Hitler Vera's like origination point. It's kind of crazy. Like, he could have gone down the fucking Tyler Hitler Vera pipeline, you know? Crazy.
About chavs. Clothing brands that you didn't like were called chavs. Rough neighborhoods were considered chav infested. But what exactly is a chav? And most importantly, where did they all go? And so I made this video. It's really interesting if you rewatch it, because my biases and all of my thinking going into this video is that chavs are bad because they were dickheads and they chose to be bad. But whilst making the video and wanting to address the question, like, where did chavs go? Why did they disappear? I stumbled across a geezer called Owen Jones.
That's crazy. Owen Jones. That's amazing that Owen Jones flipped him, dude. That's amazing. Wait, what? What happened to the audio? Wait, I can hear it. Why can't you guys hear it? Did my... You guys can hear this, right? Can you hear me? What the fuck? Chat, this is weird as fuck. Bro. When I play the video, OBS does not have sound. When I play the video, OBS does not show sound, but I can hear it. I can hear Owen Jones. What the fuck? But when I play music, when I play lo-fi hip-hop radio, you can hear it. And it shows. OBS also shows that there is sound. Look. But here, let me play the audio, and you guys will not believe me, but I can hear the audio. But OBS does not play the audio. Look. Look at the desktop audio.
I see Owen Jones and all of my... But you see it in the video. I'm like, look, guys.
Never mind. It was not worthwhile to even complain about it. All right. Well, It's just the Owen Jones bit that is very weird. That just shows that there is no. Just the Owen Jones bit in that video was just not being, featured on my OBS for some fucking weird reason. I don't know why. But he just talks about chavs. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal.
I'm about to quote Owen Jones. I don't agree with him, but what he says about chavs is really interesting. You should probably listen to it.
Truly a war in the public sphere. The author and journalist Owen Jones, who I have to admit I don't really agree with him on a lot, he wrote an entire book called Chavs.
So I read it and I'm like, fuck, maybe chavs were like a product of their environment and their economic status. Bear in mind, this is the opposite. This is the antithesis of my view, is that I would have believed as a right-winger that cultures are just like people who make decisions to behave in...
Oh, shit. And that's when it clicks. Damn, we are victim to material circumstances. God damn, I need more of that good shit. Oh! What are chavs? Chavs are, they are like low-ranking white folk, basically. They are the hicks. They're the youth, British hogs. Well, gammons are British hogs as well. Council housing and violence, that's what chavs comes from. Yeah, they live in council housing, which is public housing in the UK. And they're poor. They're just poor white guys.
The way they want it. So these are bad people who are choosing to be bad. So after this video, I go down different rabbit holes. I'm making different subcultures. I do skin.
Bro gained material, bro gained class consciousness after he listened to one libtard defend his identity. I love that.
Heads, and I do football hooligans, which are both in a very interesting period of time, which is the Thatcher era. And the more I research into Thatcher...
Oh, to be fair, this also does make sense, because like, I think a lot of... It's really interesting when you see it, like a lot of the Reform Party people just like despise Thatcher and despise neoliberalism and don't even fucking understand that like it is continued through the Tories that they voted for over and over again. And then they got frustrated by it and they're like now looking for a right-wing reactionary movement outside of the Labour-Tory dynamic. So I think that I would say working class British people are definitely more class conscious than working class American people are. It's weird. But then also at the same time, like there is, it's less mystified. Class is less mystified, but also Tories have successfully been able to shit on the working class. Whereas in America, historically speaking, since the Thatcher era, like, they have lordships, right? In the UK, like they have people who are lords. They have something that transcends beyond Marxian class dynamics, where they literally have a monarchy, and they have remnants of said monarchy in the form of lordship, right? Like you literally have lords, and they're Tories. There are plenty of Tories, and even fucking Labour Party members as well, but like certainly a big chunk of Tories that are straight up a part of this old feudal dynamic. And on top of that, there is like open, overt disdain for the working class in the UK by, dare I say, liberal, neoliberal media outlets. And it's really interesting because the dynamic is very different in America, where there's no class consciousness. But that is precisely the reason why American right-wing politicians, especially from the Ronald Reagan era. Ronald Reagan is the Margaret Thatcher of America, by the way. Neoliberals. One is a Tory, the other one's a Republican. Ronald Reagan, on the other hand, while implementing the same exact policies as Thatcher, adjusted to American material conditions, was actually hamming up this working class bona fide, this working class background that he didn't quite necessarily have, even though he was, I guess technically, if you want to call it that, a labor leader. He was, the president of I think he was president of SAG, right? Is this before they SAG-AFTRA joined together? Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. He was red baiting piece of shit and actually outed communists within SAG, but Screen Actors Guild, for those of you who don't know. But he basically portrayed himself as like this, as an actor, portrayed himself as a fake working class hero. Whereas in the UK, these guys were like, they're elite. They did not hide that they were elite. They said that they were elite, and the working poor suck shit. So the working poor that now actually identify as like Reform Party members, weirdly enough, still hate Margaret Thatcher, not realizing that Reform is a modified version of Margaret Thatcher. So they looped back around with reactionary politics and white identitarian principles, for example, the anti-immigrant shit. They looped back around into believing that like Reform demonstrates a change from these austerity politics of the neoliberal Tory past. It's very interesting. I literally wish you were being broadcasted the entirety of Britain right now. It's insane how the working class here think they have more in common with the Tories than immigrants or refugees. Yeah, except when I correctly predicted what would happen in the UK in the immediate aftermath of the Labour wipeout, right? Which was more so a fuck you to the 14 years of austerity or 16 years of austerity the Tories have demonstrated. And the incumbent disadvantage had gotten far, the global incumbency disadvantage that we saw in many of the Western world got to a point where it was impossible to reckon with. Many of the liberal Labour Party defenders in my comments were telling me, Hasan, you're out of your element. You just don't simply understand British politics. Turns out I was right. Will those people actually recognize that I was right? I don't know. We'll see. God, Labour Party fucking spear-dicking Jeremy Corbyn was the worst possible thing, the best possible thing for British fascism, and the worst possible thing for the future of Britland.
And see how she completely flipped this country on its head. She completely radicalized Britain into being extreme neoliberal capitalists. And it's kind of become just assumed that that's how the world has always worked. That's how we are. But then I discovered that at some point in society, we weren't fucking insane capitalists that we are right now. I've discovered this because there was a period of time called the post-war consensus, which I talk about fucking endlessly on this channel. But in that period of time, we followed a style of economics that was called Keynesianism.
This is, by the way, the British version of New Deal. This is the British New Deal Democrat era.
Which meant that the government's job was to make sure everyone was employed and to tax the wealthy at higher rates, use that money to build infrastructure that benefited the people. And embarrass.
By the way, the shortcomings of Keynesian economics and the shortcomings of social democracy is that it inevitably opens up the floodgates because it is always going to simply extend capitalism, and that same dynamic, that same class dynamic that exists in capitalism, the inherent contradictions, are always going to create a society that is susceptible to the same economic factors, and inevitably the capital owners will overcome any sort of socially democratic changes that former governance has implemented. And this comes in the form of austerity. This comes in the form of clawing back social safety nets and rampant privatization, which creates instability, which creates economic volatility. And in that process, you arrive at the likes of the reform movement.
Bear in mind, you know, I'm listening to Donald Trump saying, make America great again, and everyone's harping on about how the world was better back in like the 60s and 50s. And then I find out the reason why it was better was because we had mass public investment. This investment led to the greatest economic boom in history, raised many of the working class into the middle class, which created a whole host of new industries, new products, basically, it was good shit. What we did then was good. And you know, you got to bear in mind that I am being told the only answer to life's problems is dog eat dog, free market capitalism. Get the government out of everything. The government can do nothing right. Only the geniuses of commerce can do anything. Like,
it's funny because it's like these guys always go with the real capitalism hasn't worked. You know? How do you learn any of this shit? No, I don't know. I was just born with this information beamed into my dome. No, man, you just read.
Do anything, like our water supply that has no piss and poo in it, or like our really quick and definitely on time and affordable train system, or like our really affordable housing that people definitely aren't speculating on and shrinking the middle class.
Private water companies are dumping huge amounts of raw sewage in Britain's rivers and off its coastlines. They're doing so to save money, to ensure returns for shareholders, and by extension, to guarantee massive salaries for bosses at the top.
And so yeah, time's going past, man, and I'm learning this shit, and I'm like, fuck, and I'm starting to realize, like, I don't know if I believe all the things that I believe about right-wing politics, but I hadn't accepted it, right? I was becoming more and more distrustful. Things like this, right? 1 month I went on holiday.
What did you read to learn about the permission structure with racism? Okay, that was just observation. I don't think, or I'm sure things that I've read on it, things that I've read about like white supremacy here and there have played a role in this, but I think the permission structure, like the permissible boundaries of racist sentiment is just something that I've observed over the past 10 years of fucking of existing in American politics.
To Thailand, I walk in a coffee shop and I see the most beautiful woman on earth, who is now my wife, and she is Ukrainian. I go to Ukraine. Literally, during the war, I've been to Ukraine many times, and I've experienced air raids. I've heard bombs go off.
Yeah, more attacks. Putin must be having a slow day.
All the while, I look on my phone at all the right-wingers talking about Ukraine, and they believe that Zelensky is like, I don't know, a blue-haired feminist or something.
I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation.
This is my favorite clip, dude. Ukraine is the greatest enemy of mankind. Oh, this clip, man. This clip lives in my mind. It's like right up there with the Vosh clip of Tacoma wept. It's so good. A big MMO content creator, Josh Strife, says you and the extreme left are responsible for political instability. He was a teacher in the UK before, and it's crazy how he doesn't understand the actual conservatives and fascists. Wait, what? Who the fuck is Josh Strife?
26.
The Josh Strife Hayes situation is crazy. This motherfucker said he made a video where he's referring to himself. Wait, what is he? Where does he bring me up? I would love to see this. I would love to see what he had to say. Another very famous clip is that doesn't work for me either. Steven Crowder yelling at his pregnant wife. That's an Asman Orbiter. They actually had beef years ago. Oh damn! I would love to hear what his takes are. God, gamers just so bad at politics. It's kind of shocking that he's like a teacher in the UK.
American Revolution at all.
Like the fact that you have a teacher in the UK saying this kind of shit is wild. Same shelf system. I know. We have so much in common. He's on the other side of room. Yeah, he's in my room. He's actually beaming this from my room.
Right now is Ukraine.
And they're trying to say that it's actually NATO, and NATO are the bad guys, and America's bad, even though we're pro-America.
Okay, well, I found one disagreement. I mean, I am not in the pro-Russia camp at all. I'm definitely in the fuck Vladimir Putin camp, but I also am not exactly fond of NATO either. So there it is. This makes sense as to why he would be maybe pro-Destiny. He really jumped on the fucking pro-NATO. Second disagreement is coming.
America is bad. And, you know, I'm learning more about the Ukrainian conflict and all the history of how it came to be and why we defend them and why we can't allow Russia to just go and take over sovereign nations. And so you learn more and more about this. But then there was two people I come across that really, like, cemented the change, right? So I'm becoming distrustful of the right. I'm starting to see, like, you know, their takes on Ukraine as being ridiculous. And then I come across a streamer. So right now we're deep in the sort of Andrew Tate era. Andrew Tate has blown up, and at first it was kind of, you know, it was kind of fun. It was like, especially if you're sort of a young right-wing libertarian type, you need to get strong to look after yourself, look after women, looking after the people you love. Like that sort of stuff was kind of nice. I started going to the gym, I started doing all that stuff. I was always sort of into the self-help stuff, so all that shit sounded good. And then he started to talk about women.
You want to know why NATO is bad? Remember everything I talked about with like right-wing movements, reactionary movements, fascist movements growing in Western Europe especially? That's NATO. Okay? That's it. NATO is a mechanism of enforcement of American empire. Okay? It's a protection racket. And Russia's militant actions in Ukraine, its unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine, is quite literally a perfect gift to NATO. That comment is too much, is it? It's too much if you don't know anything about NATO, if you don't know anything about the history of NATO. It's also pretty funny to come to a Turkish chatter stream who grew up in Turkey, who, you know, directly understands NATO's involvement in his country in a similar fashion. Turkey is a NATO nation, and Turkey had its own version of Operation Gladio, which eviscerated, during the Cold War, which eviscerated any sort of left-wing movement in the country. So NATO was a very good way for America to come in and beef up all of the right-wing fascists in the aftermath of World War II that had died out and were getting absolutely owned, understandably, by the resistance groups, the partisans, the communists, the socialists, the trade unionists that actually had fought to liberate their own countries and fight against the Nazis. NATO comes in, immediately reasserts the dominance of fascist, right-wing militant groups, causes decades of instability, oftentimes direct acts of terror, you know, bombing campaigns, things like that. Paired up with the Marshall Plan, it recreates the exact same former right-wing dominance in a lot of these countries. Sometimes by directly utilizing Nazis, like in Western Europe. What's crazy is being anti-NATO was a mainstream left position in the West like a few decades ago. Modern SOCDEM NAFO freeze are like a recent invention. Yeah, I think part of it is because of Vladimir Putin's irredentist actions in Ukraine. I think that is a major role in this. A lot of people were like, what the fuck? This is completely unacceptable. And I think a lot of people, especially when they have like nascent Western chauvinist perspectives, see a bad guy that's a foreign adversary do bad shit, and they go, oh, we can feel good for once about something that we're doing at the global stage. Because as I've reiterated over and over again, Ukraine has a right to emancipation. They have every right to purge Russian invaders from their boundaries. It's a perfectly moral and justifiable act. The problem, however, is that America has no real interest in Ukrainian emancipation or to stop the pain or stop the bloodshed, and every interest in offloading their old weapons and basically picking apart formerly state-owned industries in Ukraine for pennies on the dollar with a massive loan scheme that they've created. Anyway.
To some degree, as a man, you have to instill drama in the relationship, because if you don't, she's going to get bored. No.
Lol, what left-wing movement was in Turkey that NATO crushed? You had destruction of the last caliphate because of hyper-nationalism law. Who would you consider the left-wing that NATO got rid within Turkey? Any sort of fucking Kurdish socialist movement, any sort of working class movement was completely gutted by ultra-nationalist Nazi fucking Turkish freaks that are now in the governing coalition. What the fuck do you mean the caliphate? Hello? Why did Turkey play an important role in the Cold War against the USSR? I'm personally anti-NATO, but what are your thoughts on the approval rating of NATO being very high in countries on Russia's doorstep? Is 90% in Poland? Can't they just say the same? That like your anti-NATO sentiments are made from the comfort of your own home and away from the reaches of Russia? Yeah, of course they can say that. But I'm also saying that from the perspective of a person who also lived in a NATO country and understands its history, understands NATO's involvement in Turkish affairs. So it would be akin to talking to, I guess, like a Polish socialist or a Polish communist, I don't know, who might have a different perspective on NATO. I'm not saying that my perspective on NATO is commonly held by Turkish people, even though I think that Turkey is less fond of America than maybe Poland is. But there was a time in history where a lot of leftist European leaders were not exactly fond of NATO. Anti-NATO sentiment is really rare in Turkey, even for anti-US sentiments. Yeah, people will be anti-US, but then they'll be pro-NATO. Yeah, İncirlik and its effects on Turkish politics. Yep. Never forget, whenever Turkey does some shit, everyone's always like, whoa, that's crazy. I can't believe they're going against American imperialism. It's like they have nukes. We in Turkey have American nukes in a Turkish-American base. Okay? We have nukes. We have American nukes that we house in Turkey. Whenever people forget that reality and think like, Turkey's doing this, Turkey's doing that, they're going to be fucking really, they're really showing everybody what's what. It's like, yok ya, Pro-NATO pek yok. Türkiye'de sorsan şaşırtıcı bir yüzdenin NATO'nun olduğuna haberi yoktur. Çok ciddiyim. Anti-NATO daha az tabii ama. Yeah, this Turkish chatter says there isn't like a pro-NATO attitude in Turkey because they just like don't even understand what NATO is. However, the anti-NATO coalition is even smaller than the people who would be like pro-NATO.
That's very true, man. And she's either going to leave or she will instill the drama, which gives her control.
Then you're seeing all these Fresh and Fit podcasts and Sneeko and all this crazy shit. And you're seeing like people making their entire livings.
The fall of the Ottoman Caliphate was worse for the world than 1989 sabotage of the USSR. This is the take I just came up with right now, listening for the last 3 minutes. Okay, first of all, you cooked. Okay, you cooked. And no notes. No notes on that. Okay, no notes. 1453, best year of my life. 1453. I'm kidding. Please don't take this seriously. People are going to clip this and be like, he's a fucking neo-Ottomanist. Yeah, sick man of Europe never had the vax. The vaccine for the sick man of Europe was the fucking winged hussars. God, the gates of Austria. My biggest nightmare. It could have been so good. Oh, what could have happened? Oh. Just not modernizing the military. So many mistakes. Abi Viyana kuşatmasını kaybetmemize sebep olan battle 11 Eylül'de olmuş. Another national tragedy. Ah. So fucking close. Muslim extremist wants to install a caliphate in America. Yeah, it's so funny because like the Ottoman understanding of Islam and its like maintenance of the caliphate is ironically directly at odds with like Wahhabi movements and the Salafists that you see that America both arms and radicalizes on a regular fucking frequency, and was known for its tolerance in comparison to its European counterparts at the same time. European empire and their centuries of colonialization was marked with far worse violence and complete complete re-education of people's like religions and whatnot and their way of existence, as opposed to the Ottoman Empire at the time. But that is a fun little thing that Western supremacists, Western chauvinists refuse to ever reckon with. And how the fuck did we get here is the real question. Oh my God. Yeah. It's no different than when people say it's no different than when people say that anti-Semitism is like a ancient Muslim thing. It's like, bro, I didn't know the Holocaust was carried out by the Muslims, dude. That's crazy. Like, it's so obviously deflecting away from personal responsibility that like Western nations want to, the Western nations that don't want to reckon with their horrifyingly violent past. Is pretty funny.
Complaining about women, and you're like, what the fuck is this? And there was one bruh who would go on these shows, and his name was Destiny.
Women fare a lot better post-divorce than men do, bro. And the reason why is because they get the resource, they get the money, they get the children, they get put in a better situation financially.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Dude, they get the house. Moms don't live good on child support. That's not true. Have you ever seen a bitch on child support? She's not living the greatest fucking life.
Women fare worse than men in almost every degree after divorces. So the idea of pretending...
What are you talking about?
They make more money. They have better dating strategies afterwards. Men just do...
How'd this man go from Owen Jones to Destiny, bro? Like an actually well-read left-wing journalist in the UK who's like written entire books to like guy who talks fast and dunks on some of the dumbest people. And like, I don't agree with everything that Owen Jones has done, obviously, but I still appreciate his voice, especially in the piranha pool that is British media.
Do better than women in almost every single metric post-divorce.
What? Bro?
Destiny was really interesting because he was a lefty and he was proud to be a lefty. He didn't try and hide. He didn't say it was like a...
I think this interview in and of itself is this interview itself shows that he's not a lefty. I say interview because it was supposed to be a debate and then they just agreed on most positions. So much so that even Lex Friedman was like, wow, you guys agree on you surely agree on a lot.
Centrist. He was like, no,
do you not agree with Owen Jones? I think he was harsh on Jeremy Corbyn. He also was like seemingly on the fuck Jeremy Corbyn. He's anti-Semitic train a little bit. He's had a couple different moments. I think he's evolved from those positions, but you know, he has some of those L's. We all have our own L's, you know, it happens.
On the left, but he didn't play into like the left-wing woke crazy stereotype. He was just a normal dude who presented left-wing ideas but was really good at debating. Now remember, debating the left up until this point was Ben Shapiro debating a 4-year-old, but now you're seeing someone who's actually quite well versed in the beliefs of the right wing debating them.
Yeah, he's well versed on the belief of right wing, all right. so well versed that he became them on many positions
and winning a lot. So I get into Destiny, right? And I even was going to make a video on Destiny. I might do it again one day. And I had a conversation with him on a stream, but I was so right-wing at the time, I didn't know how to make the video because I kind of had this mental block between really asking him sort of questions. But then the final nail in the coffin for me, at the point where I realized I was no...
Maybe sometimes a little too intimate with the right wing.
No longer right wing, was when I came across Gary's economics.
You need to have structures in place in your economy that prevent the rich from taking all of the wealth. If you don't have that, history teaches us the rich get all of the wealth. And once the rich have all of the wealth, ordinary people end up with very poor living conditions. You know, if you go to countries that are very unequal. India, South Africa, you know, almost anywhere in Latin America, very unequal societies lead to very poor living standards.
Gary is like a working class geezer, and he became super wealthy as a trader. And his whole thing, his whole thesis was that income inequality is going to get worse. And he betted on that. He made money predicting that, and it came to fruition. Income inequality has got much worse. And what's interesting, right, is he talked about income inequality and why it was bad and why it's bad for house prices and cost of living, etc. But the thing is, and I don't know if he doesn't really talk about this too much, but it clicked, it unlocked this vault in the back of my brain. It was this old memory of a clip that Jordan Peterson had put out. And it was him talking about the correlation between income inequality and crime.
You know, you always hear this idea that poverty causes crime. That's a classic left-wing idea. But it's wrong. What causes...
Is it? God, the confidence of like right-wingers and just being wrong never ceases to amaze me. Being a right-winger, being a reactionary of any sort is basically just being so endlessly confident in being wrong. Like, I don't even think there's enough. If you were to look at historic academic literature on material conditions, social conditions, whatever you want to call it, like, and the likelihood of crime manifesting in that, there is overwhelming data, overwhelming research, okay? Even from, like, it's like a basic position that even criminologists believe, right? And I wouldn't say that I'm like in agreement with a lot of the, I would say, pseudoscientific stuff that that you hear and you learn from in criminal justice education. And even then, it's like, it's almost like it's just one of the most consistently held positions. If only you knew that making less than 30K a year somehow makes you intrinsically a criminal. How can you not see this? Yeah, it's like, it's so funny. It's so funny to just like look at all of that data. Like, it's like ancient Greece, they had these opinions, okay? And then you just go, it's all wrong. That's all you need to do. Just say, it's wrong. Actually, people do crime because they're spiritually bad.
Causes crime, especially aggressive crime, is relative poverty. Poverty is when you don't have enough to eat. Relative poverty is when the guy next door has a much better car than you.
The right wing...
Oh, wait, he's right. Never mind. I took it back. I'm taking it back. I was wrong. He is not wrong. Jordan Peterson there is right. Relative poverty absolutely is why crime occurs. Yes. This is an ancient Peterson take. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. He's talking about wealth inequality. I clip-chimped myself. I was wrong.
Really love to argue about culture. They always say that, like, it's people's, the problems in society comes from people's ideas and beliefs and their values, which is super convenient, right? Because when anything goes bad, you can just say that, oh, well, it's because people...
He's wrong. I mean, he's not wrong. Sorry. Fuck. He's right. I'm so used to saying Jordan Peterson is wrong. He's absolutely right. All poverty is technically relative, so it's like kind of weird to get lost in the minutia of being like, well, you know, relative poverty. It's like, yeah, the people now, poor people now, as opposed to like really, really poor people now, as opposed to really poor people 60 years ago, are somewhat better off, right? A really poor person during the Great Depression 100 years ago is dying. A really poor person now, still living on the streets, but still has like a smartphone. That is relative poverty. That is the reality of relative poverty. But I don't make that distinction because relative poverty is just poverty. That's how poverty manifests. That's why it's really silly when you go, excuse me, sweetie, there are starving children in Africa. Why are you worrying about your own shit? It's like, that's an idiotic argument to make, right? Most people understand that that's a stupid thing to say. because you're matching poverty to you're matching your own material conditions to those around you, to your immediate neighbors, to people that are within reach. It's fucking ridiculous.
Lazy, or they're radical Marxist, or this. All the while, there's no solution to that, right? What can you do? You can't change people's minds, so it's just like, oh, well, I guess we just have to accept the status quo. But when you fundamentally challenge that view, the sort of outcomes come from...
That's why we always make fun of right-wingers who are like, oh, how can you say you're being oppressed? There's a McDonald's in every corner. It's like, yeah, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Like, oh, great. I guess everybody has iPhones, so it's fine if you don't have a house. You don't need shelter anymore because you have an iPhone.
Culture and people's individual decisions. And you start to realize that outcomes, you know, like negative outcomes, crime, poverty, people having less families, having less kids, that maybe doesn't come from culture. Maybe the reason that men and women aren't having kids and getting married isn't because they're no longer Christian and they don't believe in families and the nuclear family. Maybe it's because no one can fucking afford to have families. Maybe it's because most people in their 20s still haven't moved out of their parents' house. Maybe it's because they don't make enough money between two people to afford to have a child. There's all these things that are happening, and you realize that probably the economic system is causing this. And it isn't just that the testosterone levels in men have dropped because, I don't know, they've fucking touched receipts or something. And so yeah, the sort of like the needle drop, is that the expression? The pin drop? It all sort of made sense. I realized that I actually don't think everything is culture, and I think mainly things come from economics. I think most culture...
I DM'd JimmyTheGiant and said I'd love to have him on to talk about this video and his like radicalization cycles if he would like to come on to talk about it.
Culture comes from economics. And like, yeah, of course, attitudes, values, beliefs, they also have an impact, but I think you can...
When I watched the video for the first time, I wrote this video off because of the Destiny stuff, but you being more charitable to him has helped me do the same. Definitely can't hurt to have another guy like this here in the UK. Yeah, I think the UK political sphere is like a cesspit for the most part, with some obvious exceptions. So I'll take any fucking guy who fights back against like the Tommy Robinsons of the world, and especially has like a level of charitability and is using his own personal journey of like unlearning certain positions that they previously took for granted. I'll always be on board with dudes like that, even if I have disagreements with them at certain points.
I cannot understate economics. And so from there, as I've had my fucking left-wing epiphany, my left-wiffany, I start to really realize, like, kind of the woke stuff. Yeah, it's annoying. Do we need to argue about if there's an egg in a salad emoji? Is that really that important? And you start seeing, like, I don't know, Matt Walsh, where he's done this whole documentary, What is a Woman? And he's the expert in this. Going on Joe Rogan, being asked how many kids are on puberty blockers because this is real fucking moral panic.
How many people have had this done? Depends on what. I don't think we have exact numbers, but it's, if we're talking about the drugs, it's, I mean, millions.
It's a very small number, if that's right.
It says over the last 5 years, there were at least 4,780 adolescents who started puberty blockers and had a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis.
If your politics spends more time talking about, I don't know, what toilet a transgendered person is going to piss in, or the woke brigade, if it spends more time on that than the cost of living, the housing crisis, rising inequality, things that, you know, are actually important and actually affect your lives, if you're more focused on the former, then I hate to say it, but you've been bamboozled.
Google react to radical vegans screaming away by removing the egg from their salad emoji.
So what?
What about my rights as somebody who loves eggs to have the egg in the emoji?
I mean, I'm sorry, you're like a deeply unserious person. The moment that you fucking say that, the moment that you allow those words to like escape your mouth, I don't give a fuck if there's like plenty of people in your hug box that are going around being like, no, this is actually a proper geezer. Okay. You are like a pathetically unserious person. What the fuck are you doing? You're pissing and shitting in your diapers over this shit. This comes from a place of privilege. Okay. That's it. It comes from a place of just like having so much privilege that you are seeking out random things to be upset about. Like everything else is so set for you that you have to be like, oh, society is under fire because of this issue. Now, this is obviously like the most inconsequential and most idiotic one. The more devastating versions of this are when people like Piers Morgan or reactionary propagandists will capture the attention of a lot of working class people by channeling their anger at a visible target and claim that minority is actually responsible for all of the pain that they're experiencing.
It's an endless trope. These sort of moral panics, these clutching of pearls over social issues tend to seemingly always happen when there's economic problems. Like, I think it was in the 70s where they tried to ban Dungeons and Dragons, the board game, because it was satanic and demonic. It just so happened that the 70s was like a massive economic crisis. And so, yeah, the more I made these videos...
This guy's awesome. I mean, he has solid fundamentals. Like, I don't give a shit that like Destiny played a role in him understanding that like a lot of these dumbasses on the right are just stupid, but his fundamentals are there. Like, he understands it. He's there. He gets it.
The more I started to see these patterns, right? These patterns between the 20s and the 30s, the rise of fascism in the West, and how that seemed to tie in with the Great Depression. And then, you know,
like he is diametrically opposed to the liberal values that Destiny presents. Like, this kind of commentary is far closer to my understanding of the world than whatever Destiny presents on any given Sunday. I don't know. He usually just like shifts his positions depending on who he is arguing against, but yeah.
Notice that in the 70s and the 80s, you see the rise of the National Front, the racists and all this sort of stuff. That just happened to be the same time as stagflation.
I don't like D, but isn't ultimately good that he can pull reactionaries over, like D in some sense, meeting them where they're at? No, because if you fucking pull reactionaries over and then you keep them in your cult and you also exhibit a lot of reactionary tendencies and you don't give them the tools to actually move away from reactionary ways of thinking, you're not actually de-radicalizing them. Because like the way I think about it is like, if your goal overall is to just like bring them to your side of the conversation, bring them to whatever your team is, with the express purpose of like maintaining the same toxic culture of like going after people and you know, doxing them, harassing them, mass brigading them, whatever your enemies are. Many of them happen to be on the left, by the way. Then ultimately you're not, you know, you're not a part of this movement. You're saying, I want to pull you away from the right, and I want to make you I want to make you a loyal soldier for me, and whatever I happen to be in favor of. At that point, it's like, you know, there's a reason why so many of these like former Kiwi farms or current Kiwi farms, 4chan guys, exhibit the exact same tendencies once they become a part of Destiny's community and they do the exact same shit. Don't you do that? No, I do not. I do pull people away from the right-wing radical positions that they have, but my goal isn't to become my, to bring them over and have them become my loyal servants or subjects or soldiers. I don't give a shit about that. I give a shit more about having them change their worldview, see a different framework, and operate within a different framework where they, you know, go and engage in community organizing, help other people, run for local office, unionize their workplaces, immediately create improvements in their material conditions, demonstrate solidarity. Being in your stream made me a materialist. I had the same type of epiphany as this guy, but with you, I think it's more important you separate from the ideology you presented me. If you come out to be a bastard someday, it won't change my principles. Exactly. Like, that's the difference, I think, that that me and Destiny have. I suspect that if I were to do a heel turn and start exhibiting a lot of right-wing tendencies, I'm sure that there are plenty of people who really, really love me that would stay on board and maybe even change their minds as well. I think I'm charismatic enough to be able to keep a cultish group of people, but plenty of people would be like, nah, fuck that. I'm out. I'm done. a lot more people in this community would be done with the nonsense that I'm presenting than I think Destiny's community has. That's it. Case in point, H3H3. Yeah. I mean, that is a decent point. Like, I'm not the end all be all. A lot of people try to centralize me, and I sometimes engage in that as well because I think that, you know, there is a, I'll say it like this. When I engage in drama content or when I do collaborations, there is a secondary purpose behind it. A lot of my naysayers will say, oh, it's because he wants clout. He's just clout driven. He's clout hungry. And to a certain degree, they're not wrong. Okay. But my goal there is to try and get others to maintain a charitable position to the way I see the world. Okay. I see myself as simply a vehicle for that change. It's not about people liking me. I mean, it feels good when people like me. I'll always be honest about that. Right. But my goal isn't for you to simply come in here and become fans of mine. I want you to be a fan of, you know, thinkers that came before me, that I try to explain their worldview to you in the most palatable way possible. I'm already upset about certain positions you have, but recognize you as a net good and hope I can change your mind better on certain things that you aren't the best on. I'd rather our whole Congress be you than the bare minimum is how I see it. That's awesome. I mean, that's a healthy attitude to have. Admittedly, Old Destiny on YouTube, back when he was bashing JonTron on the alt-right, introduced me to you, and I watched both of your YouTube videos. Found D was good at deconstructing, whilst you did that and posed an alternative vision. I still remember you and him advocating for socialism and Marx against train wrecks on Scuffed. Yeah. Like, for me, the drama content I use as a vehicle to get people, to catch people's attentions, but there is an ultimate goal there. Many people will say it's disingenuous, but I'm very open about it. There is a much more important goal there. And that isn't for you to become a loyal servant of mine, to go and like attack, dox, harass random content creators at my behest, which is what usually Destiny does. My goal there is for you to see the world in the way that I see it, or at least open your eyes to a different perspective that you were not privy to prior, and then take the steps in your own life to be the change that you want to see in the world. That's it. What are the chances of ever renewing the D Hasan bond? They are less than 0. Come on, man. He spent the past 5 years trying to ruin my fucking life, and it has been a demonstrable failure, but it still hasn't stopped a shit ton of people from being open-minded to my position. Like, it's just not. If he had not spent the last 5 years aligning himself with neo-Nazis, white nationalists, and the like to engage his very cultish community to actively cyberstalk me, and they're literally hate watching right now, clip shit out of context, and brigade it, put it all over LSF, all over subreddits, all over Twitter. If he hadn't done that, maybe. If he wasn't so adamant about his right to be able to say the N-word as a white guy, maybe. Bro, he literally says the world would be a better place if you died. I know. Not only has he said that, but he's also highlighted people from his community that have like actively come up to me in the real world. So it's not that crazy to say, yeah, a person like that, I think it's very hard to maintain charitability. Very, very, very hard to maintain charitability with a guy like that. As a faithful fan, my peers hate me for liking you, but they never have arguments against you that aren't sourced in that community in an academic environment specifically. Yeah. But they're pretty easy to dismiss. Yeah, said the same thing about Michael Brooks after his passing too. Again, it's just like, think about it this way. If I were to behave even marginally as bad as a person as Destiny presents himself on a regular basis, do you think his fans would ever let me live it down? Come on. And I was charitable to him far past the point of comfort for many people, because I thought he was genuinely someone who had changed his framework, changed his attitude, changed his worldview. And I was wrong.
And the oil crisis. And then now, lo and behold, 2024, we're in big economic problems, and it just so happens that the far right is on the rise, and the Tommy Robinson Farage followers are now throwing bricks at mosques. It's a repeatable story, and like when I've made these videos, you start seeing these patterns and you start seeing how it plays out, and it always comes back to economics. And like, look, I have no hatred towards people who are on the right. I actually feel a lot of sympathy to most right-wingers, because being where they were, I understand that they've kind of just been manipulated, typically. They've trusted people who present information that try and rile them up, that make a lot of money from doing so, and they distract them from real issues. And the thing is, they're feeling the real issues. The real issues are affecting them, and they're trying to work out why. What is it? And the right will always try and find scapegoats to point at. It always does it. And like, as I've learned more, as I've read the book from George Monbois, The Hidden Ideology, Neoliberalism, Yanis, I can never say his name, Vokoris or whatever, his book, Techno-Feudalism.
Okay, come on, dude. This guy fucking loves Yanis Varoufakis, like...
Neoliberalism. Yanis, I can never say his name, Vokoris or whatever, his book, Techno-Feudalism. I kind of realized, like, the argument should be about economics. The more I learn about the left and right economic theories...
this guy's great, dude. This guy's fucking dope.
The more evidence that I can see that left-wing economics tends to result in better growth and prosperity for all people. Our system currently is great for the 1%. It's great for the ultra-wealthy because it monopolizes money into few hands. When you don't have rules to regulate certain businesses, when you tax people less...
Oh yeah, I saw this.
I hate that we've reached the point now where you and Hasan can't be in the fucking room.
Yeah, but remember, that's his fault,
retarded.
right? That's his fault. That's his fault.
Well,
it's
is
his
it?
fault.
Is it?
It is.
Okay. So you are open to talk to him anytime, right?
I've said a million times, like,
oh, it is my fault.
me and Hasan and Vosh could, even if we were doing antagonistic content, it would be amazing content. These are million view videos every single debate. It would be crazy. And if we were doing synergistic content, bro,
we would save the left. We would save the left if we got together. Yeah, dude, we're gonna save the left by fucking... If debate lord content were to save the left, all the Jubilee videos, like people who did his Jubilee video would have fucking saved Kamala Harris, okay? And also, he's looking at this from the clout perspective.
Me and Hasan and Vosh having like a competition between like how many people we could get to like post pictures of voting at booths or whatever. Like the amount of synergy there would be unbelievable. We're the three largest, I think, like of all like the live streamers. I'm pretty sure we're the three largest live streamers for politics on the internet. That like not just like podcasts. I think it's me, Vosh, and Hasan. All of us are on the left, but like
he's not on the left. I don't know why he still maintains this position. We are not on the same fucking moral compass at all. Yeah, China and Albania together are the biggest army in the world. Between us and China, we are 1 billion strong.
We don't do any content together. None of us do. That's
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder why, dude. Yeah. This is on par with a jealous ex who cyberstalks you crying into his beer because you won't visit anymore during the holidays. Insane. Does he explain why it's your fault? I'm sure he has spent countless hours explaining how it is entirely my fault and how it's because I simply am too scared of his like intellectual prowess or something, and I'm jealous of it or something like that. I don't fucking know. Yeah, is he admitting that he would be open to platforming a known anti-Semitic terrorist, kind of morally bankrupt? Except he has platformed actual known anti-Semitic terrorists in the past. Nicholas Fuentes comes to mind. So, oh shit, yo, oh. Hold on, I'm gonna have Jimmy the Giant on now. Yes, so much content online, especially in the debate sphere, is just like moralizing envy. Okay? So much of it is just simply moralizing envy. That's it. And everybody does this, okay? Everybody does this. Where people will look to where people will basically look to like I don't know, a type of content consumption and say, "Oh, this is bad." Like, it can't just be that, like, I don't like the vibes of this person and move on. They have to also say, like, this person is evil. Okay? This person isn't just bad. They're or something about this doesn't add up for me, and I'm just going to move on from this. But it's actually, this is an evil person that must be destroyed at any point. And for Destiny, a lot of his disagreements with me is just simply pure envy. That's it. He has conditioned himself into, he's almost trapped himself into this like weird, inconsistent political position where he's like a perma-contrarian that simply cares about the blood sport of it all and just like wants to aesthetically win arguments. That's it. All right, let's finish this and I'm gonna have Jimmy on.
Unless it becomes this like race to the bottom. And there's a funny reason as to why I believe in these kind of left-wing values, and it ties back to my original right-wing ideology, is because of meritocracy. The right always claim to believe in meritocracy, that we should, as a society, reward people who are good at things, right? And I genuinely believe that. However, I don't believe meritocracy exists when some people can inherit the best education, eat the best foods, have time to do sports, be healthy, have time to learn the oboe and the trombone whilst doing the Free Peaks challenge. That person has such an incredible advantage over the person at the bottom of the hierarchy.
Hasan, please read. He said himself at one point that he will continue to attack you until he has as many views as you do and your community shrinks. Fuck him, man. Yeah, I mean, it was like there's a Reddit post out there all the way from like 2019, I think, when I initially was like coming to the conclusion that like the debate Lord Space was endlessly toxic. I think it was after like his community had fucking yelled at Ryan Grimm and tried to like debate Ryan Grimm when he was in the process of like engaging in like electoral analysis. And I mean, Vosh has said that as well in the past, where it's just like he basically basically openly admitted to his own community in a DGG chat logs that are out there. I forget where it is, where he was just like upset at the fact that I was passing him in size back then, and he was like worried about it, that I was like leaving his orbit. And he has never seemingly given up on that because he sees everything from like a winner-loser dynamic. Like there's no grander political project. Even the fact that like he does these initiatives to do door knocking and stuff, I think is just simply not because he like loves the Democratic Party per se, but I think he simply wants to at least like channel, at least try and channel like all of that initiative into something. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not just like him winning debates.
The person who grew up in poverty, whose dad's in jail, whose mum has to work 3 jobs, that person who then has to leave home at 16 to pay rent and they can't afford to save a single penny. And the fact that this group of people that are living like this is growing, child poverty is growing, I think it's utterly insane to pretend that there is a meritocracy. But the right wing, through a very concerted effort, has brainwashed most of society to believe that this is inevitable. We can't fix this. There's nothing we can do about this. But we know we can. We have in the past. Countries do right now. And so that is where I land. If it means that I now have to wear a badge to show I'm part of the woke brigade, so be it. I've accepted that through actually delving into this stuff, looking into social economic problems, reading papers from academics, not listening to Jordan Peterson tell me that the academia world is overrun by Marxists. I've learned some stuff and I've challenged my way of viewing the world and had to challenge my ego at the same time. So I want to know you guys' evolution. Like, have you always believed in